This is the 18th season of Bass Talk Live. With your host, Matt Pangrath. BTL is brought to you by Lorraine's, Bass Cat Boats, AFCO, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, and Pro Guide Batteries.
BTL, coming at you!
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. It is Monday, June 13th, and we have a week of champions lined up. We're going to kick things off today with a guy that I've known for a long time. He's been on BTL before. Really enjoyed the last time he was on the show. I think it was probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I think it was maybe right after he'd qualified or was qualifying for the BPT. It is Bass Pro Tour rookie and most recent winner of Stage 5 on a stingy Watts bar in Tennessee, none other than Ryan Salzman. And then, fresh off of I believe a beach vacation and his first Elite Series win, tomorrow we have Brandon Lester joining us to talk about last week's win on Pickwick. So two winners shows. I know I've had some comments of some people that are like, man, I really like kind of the off the board guys with the guys that I haven't really heard much about or that haven't won tournaments. That kind of those other guys that are like, man, we want to hear from the guys who won. So I said, you know what? We'll hear from the guys who won this week. So we'll kick things off with Ryan and then Brandon, and then obviously a day four. I'm still trying to figure out what to do for Wednesday show. I have a couple ideas that are milling around, so we'll get that dialed in. But a little bit of a break in the action now for both the Elite Series and the BPT. The BPT does not return to action until August 6th up in Cayuga. Middle of July for the St. Lawrence. And the pro circuit is in action. I'm very excited. There's certain tournaments every year that you're like, man, I can't wait to watch these guys on here. And 3 years ago, I would have said the James River. I hate that place. I've never been there. I don't know anything about. I was intimidated of the James River when I saw it on the Bassmaster Open schedule 2 years ago. And then I went there, and I'm like, dude, this place is like Jurassic Park with bass that eat finesse tactics in power fishing city. It was awesome. I loved it. Just missed a check this year. Mediocre finish, but man, that is a place that I absolutely love. And the pro circuit is heading there this week. Now I know it's going to probably be a little bit tougher than it is earlier in the year or later in the year, but very excited to see how the pro circuit guys tackle the James River. I figured Ryan. I guess Ryan is between the guiding and the BPT. We'll ask him why he decided not to fish the pro circuit this year. So let's bring Ryan in right now. Ryan, what's up, man?
How's it going, guys?
Good. How are you doing?
Man, I'm great. I was basically booked full of guide trips, right after the win and through this week, but
and we just lost him. His signal was so good for the majority of the time that we prepped him to come in here, and we just lost him. So we'll get Ryan back. But I was mentioning how he didn't fish the pro circuit, and I wanted to bring him in to get his thoughts on this. Hopefully
sorry,
he's back.
I got
you
kicked
back?
out. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
No, it's all good. But no, so I was surprised that you at the beginning of the year, as much as you fish, that's all you do is fish. And as far as I know, you don't have like a half dozen kids and a wife or anything like that. So you seem to be on the water all the time, that you opted just to focus on the BPT this year.
Yeah. And that was really because they're dropping the bottom 10 guys, right, from the BPT every year now and letting the top 10 come in through the pro circuit. Now, let's just say 5 pro circuit BPT guys are in the top 10 or whatever. It kind of takes up some slots. So I think they let 5 or 6 in last year because of BPT guys kind of qualifying back in. But there's always a chance of you not requalifying for the BPT if you don't have a good year. That being said, I really wanted to focus on the Bass Pro Tour this year and a good foothold in that arena.
Yeah, I was looking at those
Because
standings there. In the top 10 right now, you have Michael Neal in fourth. That dude has absolutely been on fire the last. He's incredible. Justin
phenomenal.
Lucas having a good year. He's in seventh. Mark Rose in 11th. But then you have to go down to Bobby Lane, Mike McClellan, Skeet Reese, all in the top 20 there. So yeah, there'll be some interesting turnover this year. It appears, unless things rapidly change the second half of the year from the pro circuit to the BPT.
Yep. So I also, fished several Toyotas trying to qualify for the Gunnersville Championship. I fished. All I could do was the wild card division because the BPT schedule didn't allow you to fish one Central or Southeastern or whatever. So I fished Santee, Chickamauga, Dale Hollow, and Harris Chain, and just kind of had a mediocre. I didn't have much practice for any of them, except Harris, and I had a decent tournament down there, but. Yeah, just I don't think I'll make it. I think I'll be in the top 20 in points, but I'm like currently in 11th, and they only take the top 12. So after the next 3, Toyotas, I'm sure I'll get bumped out.
Yeah. Kind of a cool. I've read everything. I watched some of it going into the Watts bar, and every once in a while, it's very rare. I remember, I think Dave Lefebvre may have won one on Kentucky Lake back in the day. I'm trying to think of guys who have won events who were had no plan on winning this, just came in, really wasn't on much, and I lost a lot of fish, and somehow I won this thing. And that rarely happens at the top, hardly ever happens at the top level. Like I said, I was trying to think maybe when Casey Ashley won on Smith Mountain, I think he had kind of he didn't come in with a limit, and that was his rookie year. But I mean, I'm really going back like a decade on these things. But kind of based on everything I've seen and what I've watched, that kind of sounds like what happened to you this past week on Watts Bar in the BPT event.
Yeah, so I've never been to Watts Bar before. However, it's an extension of the Tennessee River, and people were like, well, it's, Tennessee River, should expect to do good. The only thing that's the same about it is it has dams and moving water. The lake really reminds me of like an Ozark lake, just because it's a lot of brush pile and points. And that is how the other guys did well, or shallow, right? So it's, other than the dams and pulling current, I feel like it fished almost identical to how you would fish at Ozarks. But I knew that, all these guys are so good, we're all going to find the same brush piles. And I marked all those, and I found a lot of fish out there. And I went and checked the high side of the dam, and I learned how to do that back in college, fishing the high side of Wilson Dam. And when I got there, it was like 2:30 in the afternoon on day one of practice, and I start drifting along it because there's current kind of flowing along the dam, and I'm just looking, throwing around. I don't know what else throwing. And I just see thousands and thousands of little minnows. I don't even know what kind of minnows they were. They're about an inch long, and just hundreds of bass. I'm not exaggerating. Hundreds of bass just coming up and eating them on the wall. And
really? Like keepers?
Yeah. I'm like, ooh, these are all scorables. Like, most of the ones that you see. I mean, I saw several 4 to 5 pounders even. Just crazy. And I was like, yeah, this got them. It gave me all the confidence I needed to just try and figure that out. And a lot of the guys in the field found this area. So I know day one of ours, I was fishing with Randy Howe, Cody Meyer, Anthony Gagliardi, and I think Keith Fauché tried to come in, but there wasn't enough room. And I know several guys in the Group B were fishing it as well. So this in front of this dam was getting a ton of pressure on top of me catching what I was catching. And I think just because I have the confidence in fishing the Tennessee River and just knowing that how kind of dam fishing works is the morning you might get a few bites, then it'll be really slow. Then the majority of everyone is going to leave because they feel like they got to catch them. And the only reason that what gave me the confidence to stay is I knew this tournament was going to be so tough and so slow with the score tracker. It was going to be more like a traditional 5-fish tournament in my mind. And sure enough, everyone started leaving. Every time a boat would leave, I'd start catching them. And yeah, the first 2 days, I really didn't pull any current. So it was kind of a grind, right? If you look at the weights of what I had. And then,
15th after day one of your qualifying with 8 fish for 14 pounds, and your biggest was only a 3-pounder.
right. And then, so day 2, I had like 10 pounds.
Yeah, 16th place inside the cut line.
Right. So top 20 go. However, there's kind of more to the story on day 2. I actually had the opportunity for about 18 or 19 pounds. And that just gave me the hope, because I figured the cut line was going to be 18 pounds for the knockout round. I was like, I could do it there. And they really hadn't generated current like they did in practice to get those fish feeding. And then we had a weather delay to start the knockout round and kind of push us back an hour, right? So we just shift right an hour. So starting about 2 o'clock, they started generating the same amount of current they did in practice out of the same generators, which is important to note. Like, they got to suck the right generators to make it do what it was doing. And they just started schooling. And I just started catching them, and it was so fun, man. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I basically stopped trying to catch them really once I knew I had enough to make it. That last 20 minutes or so. And day 2, they were supposed to pull the same current. So the only thing that really changed during the championship day, you probably saw I was making a run. I caught, Wheeler, and then got like 1 fish on them. And then they changed they were pulling the same amount of CFS, cubic feet per second, but they switched which turbines they were sucking out of. So what that does is change how the current flows along the wall. So they were all set up to feed, and then it repositioned all the fish. And I was like, my stomach kind of sunk because I knew what had just happened. And I was like, if he keeps catching them, I don't think I have a chance. And because the only way I could catch them when they did that was pitching the drop shot to the wall. And you get to keep a couple keepers an hour or whatever. It was about my average. And sometimes, like, if you were lucky, you get a few pull up to a pole or something like that, and you might go back to back on pitches and catch 2. But I was able to get 1 more 2-pound bite pitching the drop shot. And yeah, it was just really tough towards the end of the days. They just really weren't biting in the afternoons unless you had a place like I had where they were kind of chasing.
Yeah, you mentioned something when you started talking about this, the high side of the dam. And I want to get into breaking down dam fishing. I know you do it a lot on Pickwick, a lot of the TVA fisheries, and it's one of those deals where I feel like the average angler goes, well, there's nothing to it. You drive up to the dam, they're stuck there. That's kind of cheating fishing. It's easy fishing until you go below like the Pickwick Dam or any of these TVA dams, and it is intimidating as all get out. Like, it is a talent, a skill, just like bed fishing is, just like ledge fishing is, just like flipping and pitching is. It's just a visual vertical structure that you can see instead of, we'll get into that later. But when you mentioned, talk about the high side of the dam, what do you mean by that?
So when I say the high side, it's where the lake ends. And in what we call the high side is when you're there, you're looking out, whether it's 100 or 200 or 300, if you're at Pickwick, feet above the next lake. So you're high above the next lake. So
okay,
you're on the top of the next lake.
Okay, as opposed to the tail race.
The tail race. So the tail race would be if you would lock down underneath and then go to the next one, that would be the tail race going into Chickamauga. And if you would go all the way up below Fort Loudon, that would be the tail race of Watts Bar.
I know this is elementary stuff, but I just want to make sure I understand all this. I mean, we don't really do that a lot in Oklahoma. That's kind of a TVA thing. How did you learn how to fish dams? Because, like I said, it's something that I think everybody who's ever launched their boat and bass fish at some point has gone, let's go fish the dam, regardless of what lake it is. But kind of take us through your journey, because dude, I follow you. I talk to you. I've been talked with guys, I've buddies with a couple guys who fish with you quite regularly. And they're like, dude, this is not a joke. He has the dam fish dialed in. like where they live. Like, that's your jam. So how did you decide this is what I'm going to get really good at?
Well, it was by default, because so let's see, I'll kind of give a little background into how this all came to be. So I was a military brat growing up. My parents were military, moved all over the country. And I got to North Alabama in 2003. So my parents really didn't fish, but I would go to ponds and fish and stuff like that. And then I go to college. I played the drums. I was in the drum line, so I went to University of North Alabama, which is right next to Pickwick Lake. And I was going down and fishing McFarland from the docks and stuff. And I feel like I started that trend, but now there's a ton of people down there that fish. And then college fishing kind of came about, right? So, and I didn't have a boat at the time. So my buddy Nick Cups and I started the UNA fishing team, got Cody Braden and Sam Hickman and all them. Like we started the team, and then I was a co-angler along for the ride. So I made friends that had boats, and so UNA is right next to McFarland Park. For those of you watching, it is 1 mile from the dam. And if you're a broke college kid, you're not going anywhere else. So if the fish are there, you're going there and you're going to figure out how to catch them. So, a couple friends, like I did a lot of fishing with James Pateo. He had a 14-foot john boat with a 25 horse, and we called it Dolores. And we would just go fish below the dam, and we'd take it anywhere and everywhere up there. And I just spent like countless hours in college below the dams.
So that's like where if you're used to, that's where like Davey Height won a tournament up there, and there's been a number of tournaments that are won below there, but it seems like there's always guys who have it figured out. So does that ecosystem seems to constantly change, even though the structure remains the same? I just know, I mean, we're talking Pickwick. You talked a little bit about Watts Bar. There's a ton of research and experience that you have to know in order to consistently be successful on dams, whether it's the high side or the tail race, correct? Because isn't it all based on generation and current flow and where the eddies are?
Yeah, I would venture to say there's way more variables in dam fishing than any other like specialty in fishing, just because you're dealing with all the seasons and bass behavior, right? But on top of any given season, on any given day, depending on what they're flowing, changes the pattern or where they're positioned, right? And what they're eating. So based on current flow, it'll change their position and the bait choice during any given season. So it just takes a lot of time to figure out each day what decision to make and what bait to throw.
Do you feel, though, on any lake that has current flow in a dam on the TVA that there's winning fish around every single dam on every single lake on that chain at 12 months out of the year, 365 days out of the year, unless it's some freak show Mother Nature deal?
I would say 100% yes. There's always winning fish. Now, during the summer, it gets a little weird. Like, so the best time to win below the dam is historically spring, and then second would be, I would say winter if you have a tournament, but fall is a close, like kind of second, third, just because we don't have a lot of winter tournaments. So first in the spring, and then second would be the fall when they start chasing bait. But in the summer, they're there. They just get kind of dormant because a lot of times in the morning they don't pull current, right? So they're just kind of chilling. And the only way I've really figured out if you're going to win, in most tail races, not the high side, is like a topwater, if they're willing to come up on a topwater, because they really become nocturnal feeders during the summer.
Really?
Almost every night tournament gets one below the dam in the summer, but during the day, it's going to be one on a ledge.
Okay. And it's really hard. Is it difficult to use forward-facing sonar in that current? Like, are you doing a lot of fishing with feeling, or how does a strong current affect electronics?
Okay, so active target in the current, and if you're in current, you're not going to see the fish the majority of the time unless there's a big eddy kicking up and you can see them just tucked in behind the big rock or a wall,
Mm-hmm.
And you probably realize this too, Matt. Even when there's no current, if the fish are on the bottom with active target or forward-facing sonar, you cannot see them. It is something to do with that technology. You might see a little blip, but they're still. If you see a little blip, they're off the bottom a little bit. But if they're truly stuck to the bottom, you cannot hardly see them. And it was even evident on that wall. Like when I tell you there was hundreds of bass on that wall, there were hundreds of bass. And there were times when I could go down that wall with my active target and never see a bass. Maybe see one or two. But I know they're there. It's just insane.
Okay, so that happened on Cherokee with me, where I'm literally like where are these fish coming from? Like, how do you not see a 3-pounder there? And they're 6 foot down below it, to where I did something. I just turned off all my electronics then. So you're dealing with a lot of concrete, a lot of bounce back feedback. You said there were 5 or 6 other anglers that were there. Do you ever completely turn off all of your sonar when you're in that scenario? Do you believe in like the bounce back and chaos down there, or is that get absorbed? I don't know how that works. You've had experience in it. What are your thoughts?
I think if you can ever get away with turning it off, it's going to help you. I think you'll get more bites. Now, there's a risk reward, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we get more bites. Now, if they're not pulling a lot of current, I might leave it on because I can actually pick off a few fish. Like, I may not get a few bites just fishing closer to some fish, but I'll be able to like see a fish roaming, and I'll be able to. It'll give me a few more opportunities than if I didn't have it on.
Yeah. And then when you're fishing these dams, the next thing, obviously, I would assume you have to. Every dam is different as far as safety, how far you can get, where you can't buoy. Some you're like, holy cow, I can go right up against this thing, and I feel like I'm in Game of Thrones. And then others, you're like, bells and whistles if you get within 100 yards of it. When you're going to different fisheries, is that something where you're doing research before you go there, as far as, what is the protocol? What are the rules? Where can I go? Where can I not? Because that's another thing that I found intimidating is you're like, oh, I'm going to go fish the dam. And you get up there, whether it's like, I remember I did it on Neely Henry. I ran way up there, but then I was like, I don't know. There's like signs, but then it doesn't say you can. And I was like, screw it. I'm not even going to fish it. I mean, that's something you kind of have to really, that's a little bit of an art too, in making sure that you're legal in what you're doing.
Yeah, and that comes from just experience. Well, the more you fish the dams, the more comfortable you get. And just like driving down the road, you see the signs, it's just I show up and I know what I can and can't do. Like, I really don't have to research it too much. Like, I'll get on, I'll try to find a picture when they're not generating on Google Earth or something like that, just so I can see, like, if there is a really high rock pile or something that I should avoid hitting. So, the most treacherous ones that come to mind is the Coosa River. Yep. And Dustin Connell fishes down there a ton. And those are the places you really have to know where you're going, or you're going to take off your lower unit or put a hole in your boat.
You mentioned the fish on the bottom. You also mentioned that there's sometimes a topwater bite on them. Will you find those fish ever actually in the current, or is it? I mean, will those fish ever be in the strong current, or will they always be on some sort of eddy current break up against something when there's no current? I mean, they're not like salmon where they're just like swimming in the current ever, are they?
Oh yeah. So unless it's a largemouth, spots and smallies will be dead middle in the current. Yeah.
No joke. Just suspended middle of the water column.
Current does not phase them at all. When they want to feed, they're swimming around.
We don't give them enough credit for their strength.
They're some amazing swimmers. Like, yeah. When the water's really clear on Pickwick, I'll be out there throwing my swim baits. We're in the middle of the current. I'll watch them follow it and then leave it and go up current. I'm like, they're crazy. Just like, and also think about the St. Lawrence, and that current is on average swifter, than our current, on average. And they just move around like it's no problem.
That's interesting. Because I feel like there's a lot of guys who, there's a lot of guys who, like, I would be one of them, who would have an issue just chucking it in the current and bringing it back. Because angles is another thing that we haven't even talked about too. Like with your line when you're fishing that stuff, like that's probably one of the most important aspects, isn't it? As far as a natural presentation in the current.
Correct. Presentation is everything. And I kind of, the way I think about it is fly fishing. You want to drift it and present it in the most natural way possible, just like you would a fly in like shallow water to a trout. So when I say that, I'm thinking of a swim bait specifically, or it's a crankbait, or it's a jig, or even a shaky head or a drop shot. Depending on what they're wanting to eat, I'll drift those in the current, to the fish and try to catch them.
So the fish that you were catching up against the dam here on Watts Bar, we kind of established, but was there strong current that went up against that wall that you were pitching the drop shot to? So in your mind, I'm trying to picture, and it's hard with like I'm a big believer, like the Bridges Marina riprap and ramps, that pattern that I love, and then horizontal and vertical structure meeting, especially on fisheries that have multiple species, spots, largemouth and smallmouth, and then using the dink and dunk. Like, you worked that to perfection and beat the top guys in the world doing it, utilizing that vertical structure with the drop shot. So are those fish, in your mind, how are those fish positioned in accordance with the wall? Like, you're up there, you're making your cast. Where are you picturing those fish? Are they pointing up against the wall? Are they sucked up against it where their entire body's up against it? Are they using the bait to trap? Like, where are those fish sitting?
So there's, God, it's so deep. Like, I can go so deep with it if you want. Like, at the surface level.
If you don't mind going deep, like, let's just
Yeah.
let's go deep, man. Like, let's go as deep as you want to go. Let's go down the wormhole of this, because I struggle with this. Because it's like, I know I'm getting bit, but I can't. Sometimes when you have these big man-made structures, it's hard to figure out where the heck they're actually sitting when they see your presentation.
So first we have to understand what it's doing, like how the current is working, right?
Okay.
So in your mind, like, I'm huge when I teach people, the first thing you really got to do to get good at fishing is visualize. And you have to visualize what the current is doing under the water to really understand how it's going to position the fish. So at the surface, you can see the water's moving across the wall in certain places, right? So at the surface, if you see the water moving across, they're going to be nosed into the current. Just, up against the wall when they're wanting to feed, just doing that. Now, when you have these on the high side of the dam, you have these turbines sucking in, and it's sucking down like a vortex, like this. So, but at the same time, the water comes from the rest of the lake. It sucks towards those places, right? So leading up to that, but once you get closer to that, it's doing this stuff and sucking down. So, and then at the same time, there's a couple places at the high side of the dam that have eddies. That's very slack water. So they can kind of come out and swim around 30, 40, 50 feet off the wall. And so basically 5 to 10 feet down, if there was current going across the wall, they'd be nosed in, in the direction of the current. Now, in the same places, if you went down past 10 feet, the water starts doing funky things, starts doing this, starts doing this.
Spinning, so they might, rotating, tornadoing.
Yep. Yes, correct. So I caught several. Man, if you looked at I had like 4 spinning rods. I had my little swim bait on, but I also had 3 drop shots, and all 3 drop shots had a different weight, or I also had a weedless one, because there's a couple metal structures. If I wanted to go really deep, when I saw those fish doing that, like like 12 to 20, they'd be coming off the wall 3 to 4 feet, but under the wall of current sweeping across. But when it's doing this,
vertical and horizontal structure meeting.
Right. So I would get my heavier weight and pitch it up there, and then I'd have to swing it to them. So I'm looking at the fish on active target, and then flipping it out and playing the current and letting it drift to the fish where I see them. And I would pick my lure, my weight and my drop shot accordingly based on where I wanted to get it to present to the fish.
And those deeper fish in that kind of whatever, we'll call it a swirling vortex because it sounds cool. Those fish in the that were below the surface current were using that metal structure as a current break, basically, so they didn't have to work as hard, but then utilizing the turbidity of the water down there to pick off bait fish that were disoriented because of the swirling current.
Yeah, that, and they're just chilling down. Like, so the most inactive fish, they'd go down there to sit because there's a bigger eddy pool down there.
Okay.
And when they wanted to really feed, I would get them up here, on the surface. But I could pick some off down there because those fish down. What I realized in the tournament, I don't think hardly any pros were targeting those fish in like that 12 to 20, 15 to 20. And I caught a couple big ones each day. Like, I might do it 50 to 100 times, but catch 2.
Are they always there, or are they moving into that? Is there a fish that's 30 feet away that all of a sudden is just sliding up in there, and it's not like they've seen the drop shot 50 times. It's the first time they've seen it. It's just the last 49 times there wasn't one there. What's your opinion on that?
Fish were constantly circling in and out of there, especially I could tell like smallmouth would come in off they'd be out in the middle, and all of a sudden a group would come in, and I could tell, you can tell they're bass when you get good with your forward facing. You could see how they're swimming. A group of 4 to 7 smallmouth would just swim in, and they'd start hanging out, and you'd see them come up on the minnows and whatever, and they go down there. And when I caught my smallies, I'd see them swim in a lot of times.
So how do you practice a spot like that? How do you know, like, if you roll in practice and they haven't cycled in, will you hit a high percentage spot like that 15 times over 2 days of practice? Anytime you're around there, you'll just slide over and see what's changed or notice the current changes? Or, I mean, because otherwise it kind of seems like it's a crapshoot. Like you roll up and you find them and it looks great, or you roll up and they're not there and you're like, oh, they're not on the dam this week.
So that's what, that's kind of what happened to a lot of guys. For me, it's just, I just need to see it once. And I just trust my experience to be able to adjust that day to figure them out. I made my decision that I was going to fish that as soon as I found those fish. But I kept practice. So after I found that, I said, I even told Buddy, I was like, these are the winning fish if I can figure out how to catch them. But after that moment, I said, I'm going to practice like I don't have it. So if something were to go awry or whatever, I practiced like I didn't have it. So I found a lot of fish that I never even went and fished.
Okay, so it wasn't totally. I mean, you said kind of some of the stuff in your interviews that you weren't expected to win, that you lost. But I mean, you felt very comfortable heading into it, like the opportunity was there.
Yeah.
Should it pan out like you had seen moments of?
Oh yeah. So, but at the same time, I don't know, we'll say 8 other pros that found it probably thought the same thing, right? So I mean, we've all found the winning fish, and the longer you do it, there's so many variables you can't control.
Yeah. So how long did they stay? So did you all start there on day one, morning of day one? You do your drive around and you're like, crap, there's 5 other guys here. It's
basically not a drive around. Everyone knows where they want to go. We basically all go to where we want to go and we sit and wait.
So what, were you talking, or, I mean, okay, because I'm looking at the guys who else were there. You said like Gags was there. He zeroed on day one. Who else did you say was there?
Cody Meyer. He had 6 pounds, I think, on day
Okay,
one.
yeah, I wouldn't want to mess with Gagliardi or Cody Meyer in a mixed bag finesse deal. Like those are 2 guys. Like especially Cody Meyer, I think he's the smoothest in the game when it comes to it.
Yeah.
And then Randy Howell, he had 12 pounds. He was 19th after day one, but like no one that was there like really caught him that good.
So no one caught a keeper there but me on day one.
Were you catching them while they were there?
Yeah.
Or did you catch them after everyone left, or you just understood it?
Yeah.
In your opinion?
I guess I don't know. So Randy left first, and then he worked his way down the wall and left, and I think he went shallow or something. And then Cody Meyer stayed, and he caught a couple little ones. And then as soon as he left, I went to right to where he was going and threw what I was throwing, and I caught my second keeper.
Was that the swim bait or the robo worm?
The drop shot, yeah. The swim bait only came into play when there was either wind blowing in on the dam or they were sucking current. And then
so you were catching feeding fish then, and then you were catching resident fish that lived on the dam with the drop shot.
Correct.
Okay. We'll take our first break of the day. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about that color worm and the 4.5 versus a 6-inch. We're not going to go down that wormhole like we did with the current. We already had Matt Becker on. We talked about a drop shot for 45 minutes. We literally talked about a drop shot rig, not like how to fish it or anything, like just the actual drop shot rig for 40 minutes. We won't go that far down the wormhole, but I want to get your thoughts on the pink worm. I want to get your thoughts on 4.5 versus 6-inch. I want to get your thoughts on the weight. So BTL on a Monday with the most recent stage 5, right? Stage 5, Salzy? Yeah, stage 5 BPT champ from Watts Bar, Ryan Salzman. We'll be back right after this.
Your key to better fishing this season is Elite FS, now available at a new lower price. Get Elite FS 9 today for $9.99, and we'll throw in a C-Map reveal chart, our premium mapping solution, for free. Elite FS works with all state-of-the-art Lowrance sonar, from chirp, side scan, and down scan imaging with fish reveal to high-resolution active target live sonar. Elite FS9 and C-Map reveal. Offer ends August 31st.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
We're just about ready to go, ladies and gentlemen. Get in order.
Once again, Drew Cook is in the driver's seat.
When you're catching fish for a living, you can't let a little cold, rain, heat, humidity, or anything else get in the way of a payday. I wear APCO. Any fish, any water.
The KVD 100 jerkbait. 15 different colors. A perfect combination of roll, wiggle, and flash. Increased castability. 3D eyes. Premium black nickel hooks. KVD. Tie one on. Striking lures.
Welcome back to BTL, talking with BPT champion Ryan Salzman. Really went in depth in the first segment there about fishing dams, whether it's pretty much anywhere around the TV, any dam that has current, really, and that's kind of coast to coast. I mean, I know guys that fish dams in Florida big time, and I guess they rely on the exact. I mean, you see the guys with the gold traps out there on Okeechobee and stuff, on just those little dams that or locking dams that go into the rim canals and stuff. It's the same principles as a TVA, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be current and, the population of fish. And then I think that's really what it comes down to, is just having the confidence. Like, some people have the confidence to sit on one ledge spot, and work those fish. And I just really have the confidence to sit on a dam and work those fish.
I mean, really, this is like kind of the perfect storm for you in a scenario, because a couple things have to go right in the BPT format for this to work. And we saw it work a lot in the first year before, they went to the variable weight format. Like we saw on Table Rock, it was just a pound and a half. I mean, a slug, and you're like, okay, well, yeah, obviously the drop shot, but then you go up to 3 pounds and 2.5 pounds. So you had a number of conditions. You had a tough fishery where fish over 1/8 weren't extremely plentiful, but it was enough to kind of to spread a lot of the guys out. It was like the perfect storm for your pattern to excel. And I think, just based on kind of watching, I know Wheeler caught some on a drop shot and some of the guys, but you kind of stuck to your guns while the rest of the guys kind of mixed in some power fishing stuff. And in the end, it was those few, it was, you landed one extra bite than Jacob Wheeler did to win the thing. But it was a perfect storm. I mean, the perfect scenario for the way you won this event. Yeah,
man. And I the only day I fished 100% clean was day one. And I even lost 2 fish on the final day that would have gave me a nice cushion. But, it's just, only one time I've won when I fished 100% clean. That was on Wheeler Lake in a BFL. And I think I might have fished 100% clean in the Super Tournament last year too. But the other times that I've won, I've had enough opportunities to make up for the losses.
Mm-hmm. I kind of teased it before the break. I do want to get into it. That there's one color of worm that just keeps popping up coast to coast, and it's not any secret. I mean, it's not like, oh my gosh, morning dawn worm, stop the presses, let's start ordering them. Like, everybody has them that's ever thrown a drop shot, and regardless of brand, there's always some sort of morning dawn variation in the big bite and the zoom and the robo worm and the strike. Everyone has. What is with that morning dawn color in your opinion, and why does it work so well, particularly as the water warms up and it gets more and more summertime?
Something up with reds in the summertime. I wish I had the answer on that. I do not know. What I do know is reds disappear in the water column faster than anything else. And I think this tournament kind of proves that we're imitating shad with that worm.
With the morning dawn.
With the morning
You're saying
dawn.
you think it's more reddish than pinkish. I think it's pink.
Yeah, well, I say red, but yeah, it's pink for sure. Yeah, it's pink with like a purple line in it, right? So, and in shad always kind of have that purple iridescent. At least the Tennessee River shad do. But I think the red disappears and that purple stays a little bit. Red, pinks, just fades to like a nice gray or natural look. Or maybe it's like an outline and they really can't even see it. It just looks so natural. That's what I think. They cannot tell it's not real.
It's mind-blowing to me on how it's one of the few colors that you can go through, and sometimes you'll catch them on like a green pumpkin chartreuse tail or some sort of weird brown dirt color, but day in and day out, if I'm going somewhere, I'm putting the pink worm on.
Yeah, you might as well. And so I had that thought in my mind before I ever got to Watts Bar. I was doing a lot of guiding on Pickwick and a few on Gunnersville, and this time of year, like you said, we're catching them on the morning dawn. I said, if I can just figure out how to catch them with this up there, I think I'll do real well. So, and I actually didn't practice with it at all because I wasn't feeling it. And so when I stayed there for about an hour or so in practice once I found them just to see what they would bite, and I figured out that little swim bait and a drop shot. But the drop shot bait I had originally found they would bite was a jackal crosstail shad and purple smoke purple.
Smallmouth bait.
It was a smallmouth bait, and I actually weighed in a couple a day on that bait. It just wasn't the predominant bait. Like that morning, I was pitching it around on day one. They wouldn't bite it. I was like, let me just try it. I put the 4.5 morning dawn on, and that's really what I think I did different than everybody else up there. Was just that small, that 4.5 inch one, and they went to eating it so good.
4.5 versus 6. Do you alternate back and forth, or do you pretty much stay with the 4.5?
I have a lot of both. So I'll start out with the 6. Like let's say I have a school of fish on a ledge, and if they're not biting it, I just pop a 4.5 on there just to see if it helps. And I think the situations where it helps is 1, if they're eating small forage, kind of like Watts Bar, and 2, pressure. Like if the fish are very pressured.
Mm-hmm. And then do you always Texas rig it on a straight shank like that, or do you ever nose hook the 4.5 inch worm?
So I'll do both. And I use that Texas rig with straight shank a lot because they were on the high side of there's a lot of middle grates.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like I would get a lot of bites. Like I could feel it go into the middle grates a little bit, and they'd be sitting right under there, like we talked about in the eddy, and they'd bite it, and I'd pull them up and out. So,
what'd Jacob say after you beat him? When you guys got back to the ramp, was he cool? Or I know he's a competitor. Was he a little upset that he didn't get the dub?
It's kind of an awkward question because he didn't come and say anything to me.
Really?
He just left.
He was pissed.
I think he was upset.
He's very, very competitive. So is Kevin. Did Kevin say anything to you?
So, dude, here's the Dakota Ebear, Randall Tharp, Skeet Reese came, didn't have to. Skeet's been a really big supporter and kind of mentor to me throughout this whole thing. He was the first one to congratulate me on the pro circuit last year when I made it, and really thankful for him. And then while signing autographs, Kevin came over and took a picture with me in the trophy and congratulated me. Nice. It was a class act. He was awesome.
I've mentioned this before. Fishing is so weird because, like, there's no I mean, yeah, you're on the water on the boat, but there's no, like, you're not like on the baseball field or on the hockey arena or on the football field where you have like a helmet and you're like dressed, you're like a normal guy. So like, I think there's 2 schools of camps. There's I'm a competitor. This is the game now that, the game's over. And then there's other people that are like, well, it's the exact same, whether you're on the water or you're off the water. Mm-hmm. I think Edwin is like that a lot too. Like, and I'm not like trying to talk for Edwin here, but like off the water, like dude, the guy like gets every penny out of the smile and he's friendly and stuff, but like on the water, like I would not want to tangle with him. But, former football player, I think he's looking at it like that's the playing field, that's the competition. You're my competitor. My goal is to beat you, and if I don't, it's a failure.
Yeah.
Whereas then you launch the boat and it's totally different off the water. Some of these ultra high end competitive guys, like their mindset and their competitive nature it's just a different. They just march to the beat of a different drum.
Yeah. And speaking of Edwin, I forgot, but day one he did come in it was like third period, and so I was fishing it. And he didn't have a fish at that time, and obviously in the score tracker, he knows I had like 14 pounds, and he never, came fishing right next to me, and he never came back on day two. So, really appreciate that.
I do also, before we want to move on, you mentioned some BFLs and some stuff that you've won on Gunnersville. I haven't done the full research on this, but I do want to note a really cool stat. You have had a top 10 in a BFL on Gunnersville every single year dating back to 2014. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Not this year yet. I don't know if you fished any this year yet. 8 consecutive years. And if you look at that BFL division on Lake Gunnersville, the number of Elite Series, BPT pros, pro circuit guys, guides, regional tournament anglers, the numbers for those BFLs on Gunnersville are astronomical. I would venture to say probably the most difficult tournament in the BFL circuits outside of like maybe a Rayburn or a Florida one as far as local advantage. And to have a top 10 every single year, and 3 of your 4 BFL wins are on Lake Gunnersville during those events, that is one heck of an accomplishment.
Man, thank you, man. So Gunnersville is a special place for me where I feel like me and that lake just click. Like your natural thought process lines up with what's going on there.
I mean, because you only get like 1 or 2 chances, right? Because you go like Wheeler, Pickwick, all that. So that's every single year with being on it when you go into it.
Yeah, I think there was one year like there were like 2 or 3 on it in the early 14, 15, and then a lot of times they spread them out. And like there would be 2 on Gunnersville. Like they'd have 1 during the normal season, and the super tournament would generally be on Gunnersville.
Are you planning on fishing any of them this year, or is the streak going to end this year?
Absolutely. The super tournament, so that was several of those top 10s came from the super tournament, and the super tournament was one where I wanted to win that one so bad, and I think I got an 8th in it, a 5th, a 4th, a 2nd, and then last year I finally won it. And that was probably one of my most memorable wins, just because I came so close 4 or 5 times, and then finally got it done.
But wait, so are there any more BFLs on?
No, I don't know if there is. The super tournament might be on Pickwick this year.
Yeah, it's not. It ends, dude.
I think it ends. Yeah,
Pickwick Region 2, October 13th through 15th. Florence,
so this year,
Choo-Choo.
Yeah, the BFL streak ends, but the Freedom Marine Tournament, Matt Lee and I fished it. We got second. Same people, there's like 200 boats in it. And then the casting and catching, I fished that, and then we also got second in that one. That was like a 300 or 400 boat tournament.
You're still doing the True Bass stuff?
Yes, sir.
Because when we had you on last time, that was the big deal. Was the swim baits, and then the preacher jig. You call it the shuttlecock, right?
Yeah, we call it the shuttlecock. This is by David Allen, and he's one of my best friends. And he was hand tying these for a long time, and I kept telling him, I said, "Dude, let's do something with True Bass." And finally, he's like, "All right, let's do it." And because so many people kept asking about it, and we were slaying them with it, and got it going. And we just got 3/8 and 7/8 ounce in on the website literally this week. So we've only had a 5/8 out, and it's literally just released. I think it's the best hair jig on the market, and I think a lot of other people that fish professionally do too.
5/8's the best all around. Like if I'm just I've caught a lot of striper on it. I have never caught a bass on a hair jig. Ryan, is that bad to admit?
No,
Like on a
big
hair jig like that.
Yeah, I mean, it might, until you throw it and get some confidence in it, it's just not one of those things that not a lot of people are like, I'm gonna go throw a hair jig today, So
Well, I mean, I need to because they catch them in Oklahoma on it. When everyone comes through Oklahoma, you see them throw it.
So it is actually very effective over brush. Like if you have a group of fish, not just one or two, because the thing it does really well. I do a lot of burn and kill, so it's doing this, and the hair's kind of flowing and doing that, but it gets them competing for it. Man, it's insane. Like you can feel them. Like you'll get one to nip it, and when you get a bite with the hair jig, you want to reel, because if they don't have it, you keep playing the game with them, right? Take it away, you get the bite, reel, nips it, and all I can see in my mind is they're doing this. They're fighting over it, and then finally one gets it, and you hook them up.
So instead of a crankbait just going right through there, you can vary You can vary the water column vertical. Something that a crankbait, unless you're doing a burn and stop, but you can keep this moving and it triggers something else in their senses.
Yeah, it's very much a cat and mouse game. I mean, you can watch them on active target, even when the school is pressured, and even when you've caught a few on it, and when they're not biting it, they're still chasing it and playing with it. Like there's something about that just triggers their senses.
I've got the open on Oneida. If I'm planning on fishing offshore, why can I not take a hair jig in a perch color or a white, or so? Will the smallmouth eat that? Will I be able to do the same thing offshore with it? I've never heard that. Have you?
So, man, I have had very limited reports of people trying this big of a hair jig up there. I don't see why it wouldn't work. I don't think you would get as many bites. A lot of people know about the marabou jig up there.
Yeah, that's like totally different. That's a totally different bait.
Sure. Well, I mean, yeah, you're talking like the marabou jig is the size of that head, mostly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and we know they eat big perch up there. So,
and they have what other big bait fish too?
Sure, right. And
pike.
I know they eat drum. Like I see smallies spit up drum all the time. So
surely someone's caught them on Champlain on a hair jig before.
I would think, and they eat a big white spook on the surface.
Yeah. So is it not good in vegetation too? Because you can, you're losing your forward-facing sonar. You can pop that thing out, drop it down, pop it out, drop it down.
So Buddy Groves, he won Pickwick doing that on. So I think it was a FLW tour event.
How much time do you spend on the true bass stuff as opposed to fishing and guiding? Because you've got a full plate. Do you have it kind of dialed into where it kind of runs? It's not a full-time job?
Yeah, we have it dialed in. I have a great partner. His name is Clay Cornegie, and he runs everything as far as like the management of it now. And I'm doing like, marketing, promotion, and just help pushing it. And I design baits, and it's a great team.
I don't think people realize how good your last couple years have been, dude. Like you almost won the Angler of the Year last year in the pro circuit. You're top 5, right?
I finished 3rd in the AOY.
Yeah, and 3rd in the AOY.
I thought it was a funny stat. If the BPT guys didn't fish, I would have won AOY.
I'm conflicted on that. I don't see an issue with them. And listen, I'm not asking for your opinion on this.
Yeah,
but I'm giving mine.
Okay.
I don't know. I need to do a call episode with Dave Mercer on that because I could see two things. I could see like, dude, there's only like 7 or 8 opportunities on the BPT, and the pro circuit is a viable professional league and has been for 25 years under the FLW tour when it was created back in the late 90s. But I also see where it's like, hey, you made the BPT, you're getting a paycheck and you have that, so give a chance for someone like you coming in then instead of just being the 3rd place guy. Like, hey, here's the pro circuit Angler of the Year and everything that accompanies that, and sponsorship wise, Ryan Salzman. But then I also want to say, like, well, maybe you let them fish it, but they don't count in the Angler of the Year race. But then that's kind of cheap because technically you finished 3rd. There were 2 guys that did fish that circuit that were better than you.
Yeah, they earned it. Yeah.
I'm like 50-50 on that. I'm all about anglers' rights and not restricting where you can and can't fish. But then I also see higher standard, qualified for something. It's the pro circuit. It's not the Bassmaster Opens, which, as the name implies, you got the $1,800, sign up and go for it. Doesn't matter who you are. This is a qualified league. I don't know. That's an interesting.
The only thing I'll add
discussion.
to it is the longer it goes on, the more acceptable it will become, because the only way to get into the Bass Pro Tour is through the pro circuit. So eventually, let's say 20 years from now, most of the guys that started in that exclusive league will be weeded out, and it will be a farm of pro circuit anglers that can go back to where they came from and fish.
But the last couple of years financially, your guide business is rolling. The True Bass stuff, I see it more and more. And the tournament winnings and money fees, obviously the $100,000 check helps, but $120,000 here, all the money from last year on that. You've really done a lot as far as financial security for your future in the last 24 months on and off the water, it sounds like.
Yeah, man, you hit a point in your career where it's make it or break it. And we were approaching that, that mark, I feel like, and you're either going to make it or you're not. I mean, because it's very expensive to do the sport, and with gas and everything and tournament fee, entry fees, you're either going to make it or you're not. So I was just very, very thankful for all the blessings that came into my life starting last year. And I actually had some health issues last year when I finished third in AOY. Started having my thyroid act up. And I do. It's crazy, right? And I have hypothyroid, which drains your energy. So there'd be days I could barely lift my arms last year fishing. And finally got that figured out. And this year I'm feeling better than I have in a long time. So excited for that.
Was there any hesitation in jumping into the BPT and making that commitment? Was that something you had to think about, or was that a no-brainer for you?
It was a no-brainer just because of career progression. You want to be competing against the best people. And whether you like the format or not, that's where the best people are, and that's what's going to help your career the most.
Sponsorship-wise, did you see a big jump in that? A lot more interest, people wanting to kind of be a part of that?
I did.
Awesome.
I did. Yeah, it was great. The BPT, I mean, every year it gets better and better, and I think people are noticing that, and I definitely saw an increase in sponsorship from qualifying for the Bass Pro Tour.
Cool. All right. You good for one more segment?
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
All right. We're going to take a second break of the show. When we come back, more with Stage 5 winner from Watts Bar, Ryan Salzman. It is BTL on a Monday, June 13th. We'll be back right after this.
Elite Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? Well, the Bass Tank is here to help you. The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
Vibrating jigs are a great choice for any time of year, and the Kamikaze Swim On is a perfect match for any vibrating jig. Two sizes and the unique tail design gives it a bait fish profile and a great swimming action for realism. There are 17 colors. See them all at bigbitebaits.com.
The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
Combining one of the most popular hook styles with Gamakatsu's beefier Superline offering, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend delivers the strength necessary to target big fish in heavy cover. Well suited for braided line and heavier fluorocarbon, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend is built using stronger Superline wire that allows anglers to easily fish a finesse worm around heavy cover. The round bend offers a larger bite area, perfect for any worm presentation, while increasing your hookup ratios. The newly enhanced Z-Bend holds your plastics on the hook longer, reducing the number of pull-offs and reducing damage to plastics. Available in 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, and 5/0, this is the most durable worm hook, designed for heavier lines that hold your bait on longer.
Preparation is key to success. And that preparation starts well before you ever hit the water. You're only as strong as your connection to the fish, and your line is that critical connection. Confidence in your line every minute of every day on the water is a necessity, and failure, it's not an option. Sunline makes the fluorocarbon, nylon, and braided lines to give you the strength to guarantee your confidence.
We're back, BTL, on a Monday. And wrapping things up, I wanted to get to this. I mentioned it to Ryan backstage before the show started. Here's the schedules coming up for the Elite Series, the Bass Pro Tour, the Pro Circuit, and you know what? For good measure, I threw in the NPFL, the National Professional Fishing League. The Elite Series, July and 2 in August, St. Lawrence, Oahe, and La Crosse. The BPT wraps up on Cayuga, and then in September on Mille Lacs. And like I said, the Pro Circuit heads to the James River in June, and then wraps up on Champlain and the St. Lawrence. And then the NPFL goes to Saginaw Bay and Sandusky Bay before finishing the season in Florida. Take out this week and the very last week of the NPFL there in Florida, and this week on the James River. There is a lot of northern smallmouth fisheries that we've seen historically over the past, well, since they've been doing this 8-9 years. There's 1 year of the pandemic year, the Elite Series ended with a bunch of fall tournaments on historical slugfest. I think like Gunnersville, Chickamauga, and stuff. And I thought it was awesome seeing these guys try to catch them in September, October, stuff like that, where they don't, where they're typically up north. But what are your thoughts? You are in this mix. You end on Cayuga and Mille Lacs. You've been fishing for a long time now. But to me, it seems like, dude, I can look at the Elite Series and be like, well, that's who's going to catch him in the last three. I can look at the BPT and say, yeah, looks like Wheeler's pretty much got it wrapped up there, and Andy Morgan's got an uphill climb. And I can look at the Pro Circuit and say, Spencer's got to hold on, because there's a couple guys that are undoubtedly going to catch them on Champlain and the St. Lawrence, and then the same for the NPFL. Is there enough, in your opinion, diversity in the schedule, particularly when the Angler of the Year is on the line at the end of the year, requalifying Angler of the Year, making Red Crest, making the Bassmaster Classic, and they go to the places where the same guys have caught them for the last 8 years? Is there an issue with that, or is that just how it's supposed to be, Ryan?
I'm going to play devil's advocate to you now, because the same could be said for going to the South first thing. You know, going to, all these guys are going to traditionally do well, you know, and I think all the guys love going up north because it's so much fun. Just like the northern guys got to learn how to catch them down south, southern guys got to learn how to catch them up north. And I've done well up north. I love it. I think it's easier. than catching them down south. I think it would make it a little more interesting if we didn't always go back, but I think like after a long season, everyone's so excited to just go catch a bunch of fish.
Oh, I agree. It's fun. It's fun to watch. I like it, but like I just think like I like the James River wrinkle in June on the pro circuit schedule.
Yeah.
Like I think you're going to look back on that tournament, and I know they all count for the same but I think you're going to look back on that tournament as far as an Angler of the Year shakeup. I think that happens on like a James River, or I think the NPFL happens on Florida in the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think you have way more of a chance of an outlier and guys who stink at it. Like Seth, like the last couple of years, or the last year when he won that Angler of the Year, like, dude, that was like done. There's like no way he's not going to catch him once they go up north.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's going to have this opportunity. That's for sure. I think when we went to St. Lawrence last year, a rookie won it. And but obviously you had a couple guys in the top 10 that were just, going to make it. I don't know if Lucas made the final day, but I made the cut. I remember Lucas made the cut. I don't remember who all made the top 10, but
Cody Pike, Matt Stefan.
So yeah, Stefan.
Yeah, it was an interesting one last year when you went, but just as far as like, there's just gray bucks up there, Cody Meyer. Yeah, you had a really good tournament. Lucas finished 32nd, but you don't have an issue going to the same venues the same time of the year up north every year. You like it?
I personally don't. I love it. I want to go catch some smallmouth. It's like my playground. If I could have a second home, it would be on the St. Lawrence. It's so much fun. Now, I just obviously everyone's limited by their finances and whatever, but I think us as anglers, so many people like fish your strengths. Well, I just want to be very versatile, and I want to learn how to catch them everywhere we go, and see if I can put myself in contention everywhere we go. And I think that's the definition of a true angler.
I would agree with that. Have you ever been to Cayuga before?
I've never have, and I'm taking my little happy butt up there next week.
Oh, I'm kind of jealous. I'm actually not kind of jealous. I am.
Dude, so I heard rumors, I heard rumors there's no grass up there now. I don't know. Who knows? I'm going to find out when I go. I hope they didn't kill it.
Do you eat fish?
I don't eat a lot of fish. No. Why?
You don't?
Like
no, I was just going to say, like around there, like whenever I've been up there and fun fish, like I said, this is not information. I understand it's off limits.
Yep.
You can catch a lot of jumbo perch on a night crawler that are delicious. Delicious. Like when I've been there covering events before, I have caught ample supplies of jumbo perch off the dock and then scaled them in hotel rooms and then fried them on a little deal outside. And it's just one of those fish, it's kind of like the walleye when you go to a night or something where you're like, once practice starts, I'm done. No fish during practice or anything. That's counterproductive, bad luck. But beforehand, just fun fishing. I have no issues with the jumbo perch and the walleyes.
I think I might try it. I appreciate the tip on that. I mean, that sounds fun.
Yeah, live bait.
Yeah,
that's my roots. Of a crawler on a drop shot, and you can just jumbo perch, and they're fun to find. I did it one time. Crochet was up there, and he's like, "Man, I gotta figure out these." We didn't have any. This is before he was married to Sarah and had kids and stuff. We just had like some time to kill. He's like, "You want to go out there?" I was like, "Yeah," and he was bass fishing, and I was behind him tossing perch in the cooler I jumped on Cliff's boat with a dozen night crawlers and a spinning rod. And he was like, "Man, I don't know about this." He's like, "I maybe should have invited you." And by the end of the day, he's like, "All right, give me a worm."
See, I love that about you, man. Like there's so few people in this industry that just still love catching fish, like just catching whatever, and
yeah.
I'm the same way. Like my fishing partner, if the bass weren't biting, I go catch the heck out of stripers and white bass or whatever.
I have a problem with that. And like when we went to wherever it was in Tennessee that I stunk at this year, Cherokee. Like I got out over, and they were the hybrids, right? Those 8 to you could drop a Demiki rig on them, and like everyone out of every 10, you're just. And I was like, damn, I just spent like 2 hours dropping on what I know are hybrids, like in practice. But like it was so much fun when you hooked one and they were like those blimps. Same thing on like the top water with that. I'm always that guy who's like, you know what? these are 2.5 to 3 pound white bass, but like, man, you always hear about that guy who catches a 5 pounder in a school of white bass. Maybe the 19th one is going to be a 5 pound large.
So on the Tennessee River, you're not stupid for doing that. I catch a lot of big bass out of white bass schools.
You just keep going, and then all of a sudden one of them's a bass.
I will literally catch 20 to 30 though sometimes. I have a video I'll send you.
In a derby.
In a derby, yeah.
Really?
I'll even throw those little like casting spoons at them and just like the goal is to just catch as many, and then you know white bass, they're really big about following it. You pull them off, and then what remains usually is the bass underneath.
That's a nugget of knowledge there.
That's a nug, dude. I'm telling you, it works like a charm. I was on a guide trip right before Watts Bar on Pickwick. I'm like, all right, this is a white bass school, a white bass, bass school. So all right, here's white bass, here's bass. We're gonna catch the white bass and then the bass. And before I could even like really fire the white bass up, all of a sudden I look and something floats up. I'm like, is that y'all's fish? What's going on here? So we go over to it, and like a 2.5, 3 pound largemouth tried to eat a 1.5 pound white bass, and it was stuck in its mouth. So cool. Unstick it, we do a little video and then let it go.
If people want to get on the water with you, are you completely booked, or what's the best way to go about that, Ryan?
Just go to alabamabassguide.com and send me a message on there, or you can send me a message on Instagram. It's ALBassGuide_meme lord. I'm pretty booked up. July I have openings, and this fall I'll have a lot of openings. I do a lot of frog fishing on Gunnersville. We'll do some fall fishing on Pickwick with the top water. I try to guide, because I'm doing so many, tournaments now. I try to do like the fun time of year to guide. So top water season on the Tennessee River, whether it's a frog or a spook or a swim bait, that's my favorite stuff to do. So if you want to do that, starting in September, I'll do electronics through August if you want to learn electronics.
I'm on it. I have not seen a guide set it up like this. You have full day pre-tournament trips, electronics and fishing classes, 6-hour fishing tricks, half hour, and then all day grinder. I like that.
Yeah. The all day grinder actually needs to go up on its price, because that was, and I do a couple of those a year, but some people are all about it. Like we'll do like a practice day in a tournament, like sun up, sun down, go hard.
But you could send you a message that's like, hey man, I want to go out and just try to crush them on a frog and learn how you frog fish and stuff, and boom, you show up with 3 frog rods and that's it.
Yep. I did one with a bull shad the other day.
Really?
Yeah. Showed him how to fish a bull shad.
Have you messed around with the bull glide yet?
No, but I want one.
I got one.
I bet you do.
It's good. I was out with the other guy who fishes professionally, and he was like, hey, look at this. And he pulls it out of the rod box. Literally the first cast. Shoo, shoo, past the dock post. Here comes a little 3 pounder up after it. And I'm like, well, that didn't take long at all. And then he got it stuck on a cable, right? Clear water. Mm-hmm. And he's sitting there shaking it. I've never seen this before. So instead of the fish like submarining down underneath it, the sucker went up to the cable and repeatedly tried to eat the bait off, like kept attacking it, and then would like turn around and then attack it again, and then could not figure out why this gizzard shad would not, Of course it got both hooks in the cable, and he's sitting, we're 10 feet from it, and this fish just keeps sitting there trying to eat it off of the cable. Couldn't get it. That's
amazing.
But after that, then I went to the classic, and then I was like, it happened to be, and I was like, oh, there's Mike Bucca selling the glide. They have the cases. They're like crack dealers, right? Those open and those 2 or 3 swim bait deals. Everyone's just, here, take my hundreds. And I got one of those really good looking painted ones. So
I'm jealous. So I'm going to ICAST. I don't know if he'll be there, but I'm definitely going to buy one.
My thoughts on those are, and like I said, dude, that's an investment, right? So like a high quality glide bait, like a Bucca or a phony frog or a Roman made original one or whatever. Like you catch the heck out of them on like the Storms and the River to CS waivers and even the Gancraft jointed claws. But like the way I look at that is, it's very rarely am I going to fish it. If I lose it, it's 100% going to be on me. It's either going to be a bad line or I'm going to do something dumb with it because I'm not fishing it that deep. But like, you should be able to keep that for years you're typically not going to be throwing it a ton. The upside is that bait pays for itself in one fish, whether it's a big fish if you're throwing it in a tournament, and if you're in a bind, you can always sell it for at least what you paid for it.
At least, for sure. And it's kind of funny. I was having this conversation with my client just yesterday about the bull shad. I'm like, I think of baits as in CPF, cost per fish. And whether it's a bull shad or a $100, $200 glide bait, like you said, as long as you don't lose it, it's actually cheaper cost per fish with those baits than plastics.
Yeah, because it's the same bait.
It's the same bait.
I've got one negotiator I've probably caught, like, I'm not exaggerating, I've probably caught 30 on it, which is a lot for one glide bait for a guy in Oklahoma who throws it maybe 5 or 6 times a year. That's a lot of fish on a glide bait that I've landed. I've caught it in multiple tournaments. I've caught them on it. That was well worth the $200 that I paid for it.
Oh God, yeah. So, and the longer you keep it, the cost per fish is going to keep going down.
Plus, you can just freak out guys going down the bank, just
like dropping a bomb on them. But the bull shad, really, it's one of those baits that's like the cost per fish is cents. I mean, I catch so many on it, and it's like $70, but I destroy them on it.
You throw the big one too, the 7, 8, 9 inchers.
I've never thrown the 9, but I'll throw the 8 for sure.
The 9 looks like a medium-sized pizza. Does it not?
It's very intimidating. Like, I don't have a rod big enough to throw the 9, I don't think.
You know they have to eat the thing, though.
Oh, they got to. I mean, dude, 2-pounders are eating the 7-inch, So, like,
I was out with like I said, I don't want to give away what everyone else is doing, so I'm just saying guys. Yeah. And he was throwing the 8-inch, and then he caught one. And he's like, "You want one?" I said, "Yeah." We're actually in a tournament, and he gave me the 6-inch, and it looked like a 0.5 crankbait compared to the 8-inch, and the 6-inch is still a big one too. It's amazing.
It is.
It's all perspective and what you're used to.
It's amazing how once you start using big baits, how traditional size baits look tiny.
It is. I had a fish the other day. I mentioned it. I put it on my Instagram. One of the first fish I've ever had that it wasn't like a bass minnow. It was like a 5-inch bass that it had down its throat, perfectly formed and stuff. And it was a 13-inch bass. I caught it on a buzzbait out of water willow, and it had a tail sticking out. And I said, "That looks like a bass." And I pull it out, and it was not this year's. It was a 5-6-inch bass it had down its throat. I was like, that's the first time I've ever seen a bass with another bass. I know it happens, but.
Yeah, I've never seen that, but that's cool, man. I guess that's why they make baby bass colors.
I know. That's what I said. Frank Scalish, we do on Thursday, he's always about the Florida baby bass color. And I'm always like, dude, I was like, the only baby bass pattern that I think I have is that. Remember the flat A had like a baby bass pattern.
Oh, yeah.
The Bomber had a baby bass pattern.
So I had a travel buddy. His name's Colby Schrumpf on the pro circuit.
Yep.
Destroys them on baby bass, like all over.
Confidence bait.
Dude, he catches the Bomber baby bass.
Yeah, it's like name another company that has a popular baby bass pattern.
I can't.
Bastrix had one when they first came out with that 6-inch paddle tail, but that look, I mean, it was. I think it was the guy who started it, basically drawing the pattern on with a Sharpie before he dipped it.
Yeah, doing the.
Yeah, but that was kind of had the green. It's basically just a green gizzard shad. Mm-hmm. All right, Ryan. Anything else?
Thanks for having me on, man. I've really enjoyed it.
Dude, thanks for jumping on. Congratulations. It's your first tour level win?
Yes, first tour level win, man. I couldn't be happier. So thankful. A lot of us fish, you can win, and it's just having the right opportunity and right time. And when it comes together, I'm just was beside myself. Kind of didn't seem real. It's just setting in.
I will ask this though. So you've got Jacob Wheeler behind you. It's ounces. Any fish beats. How long before you're actually sure that you're not like, oh yeah, and then they're like, oh, something how final, when is it actually final in your mind where you're not still second guessing that someone didn't catch a last minute one?
Oh,
because they always say you won, and then but it always seems like when you win and it's close, no one ever actually wants to believe that they've won.
That's kind of how it was, The only thing that I know, I trusted it because the camera guy has the earpiece and he's hearing it live real time. So when it was over, he said something to him, and then he made the announcement. So when he made the announcement, I believed it, and yeah, I just couldn't. I mean, I couldn't believe it. That's crazy, man.
Was it like getting $100,000? I mean, that's got to be cool too. Like,
yeah, super. I mean, so I always looked at this. So you go to school, right? You invest in yourself. All these entry fees and everything over the years, I was just investing in myself and hoping to get good enough so it pays me back. And I'm going to finally pay off a little bit of debt, from getting here.
And then last thing, what's with the? I've never asked you this, but you've got the style deal with the tropical floral pineapple, the hat. You got it on the side of the jerseys. Is that just a way to kind of stand out, or is there any significance behind,
Yeah.
Like, are you a guy who loves tropical climates? I don't know.
I like fun things, and
Right.
that's kind of how it started. But the true whole story of it, I'll make it quick. I used to film a lot with Mikey Balls, and now I do here and there. So Mikey Balls had a flower hat, right?
Yeah.
And so I got this one. I wanted to mess with him, so I ordered this and wore it filming with him, and he thought it was really funny. And then that kind of video took off, and I got a message from this company. It's called Shaka Kai. And they're like, thank you for, plugging us or whatever. They gave me a gift card. And I said, well, if you like that, here's what I can do for you. I sent them a proposal, and then they became a sponsor of mine. And I loved it so much.
No joke.
I swear. Yeah, they're a sponsor. It's kind of become my personal brand. So
I'm on it right
great.
now. Shaka,
Yep.
SHAKAKAI, and it's got the like hang loose deal.
Yep, the hang loose symbol right there in the hat.
So what, they just slid into your DMs?
Yeah. I tagged them in the post, when I filmed with them, and they were like, "Here's a $100 gift card. Thank you so much." And then I sent them a proposal, and I've loved working with them ever since. Now, some of my favorite products they have are like these board shorts. Their shorts are phenomenal. They're super comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And they have these big straw hats too that are really fun for the summer. And they also have the hang loose symbol on it, and kind of have some cool designs underneath the lids. It's nice.
I'm glad I asked about that, because I just assumed that it was just like something you found at like Joann Fabrics and we're like, hey, incorporate this into the jersey.
No, man, it was like, so it started with the hat, and then when I made the BPT or whatever, I was like, I want a custom jersey. I want to something to separate myself. And so now, like, the hood of the truck has this print on it, and the tailgate of my truck has this print on it too.
I noticed that. All right, dude, that's awesome. Congratulations. Keep the streak rolling to make that make the red crest right there. You're right on the cut line, but like I said, headed up to where you enjoy spending your summers. So
yeah, I can't wait. I'm excited to go learn how to catch those fish up there and hopefully finish the year strong.
Ryan, see ya.
See you, bud. Thanks.
All right, that was Ryan Salzman, Stage 5 winner on a very stingy Watts bar. And like I said, I was interested in talking to him about it because selfishly, that it seems like he won the way that I like to fish. The drop shot, take a pattern, not run, take a stingy fishery, realize what's there, and maximize it. And you hear a lot of people saying how tough it is to win like that you have to go out and then throw the big baits and take the risks and stuff. But here's a scenario of Ryan Salzman, who got a $100,000 check and beat, well, say it, the best angler in the world right now, Jacob Wheeler, and he stuck with his guns. He stuck with that kind of finesse tactics and made it work. I did not realize the knowledge. I mean, I did, but it's interesting when you talk to someone who's got a knowledge base of dams and current, the undertows, how everything sets up. Like I said, it's I think it's kind of a microcosm of society. You have something that you don't understand, you just look at it and you go, oh, that's that. And you go up, you fish the wall, you got it super easy. It's just like people who don't bed fish. How hard can it be? You just pitch it in there and the fish swims over and eats it. It's like people who don't ledge fish. I'm not going to sit out on that ledge where everybody knows where they are and they just go and make a cast. Or the guys who are out on the ledges who don't understand the flipping. Well, how hard can that be? You go down the bank, you see a piece of cover, you cast to it, the fish bites to it. But the more you get into it, everything has its little niche and there's different layers behind it. And I think that's one of the really cool things about bass fishing is the more you know and the better you get at it, I think the more you realize that you don't know and the more there is to know. And that's one of the things where I think BTL and Ryan's got he's done a podcast and a YouTube channel and all the live coverage and stuff. There's so much desire for knowledge in this sport, and I think that's a lot different than other sports. I was watching like the Live Golf Tour, and then I was also watching the Canadian Open in golf. I don't even want to get into that wormhole now, but it's just interesting on how in fishing, a lot of the coverage is focused on breaking down what they're doing and how they're doing it. Like in golf, you might get a little bit of a tip where you have a guy who talks about how, he hit his wedge or something like that, but they never go in depth into it to where they're trying to teach the people how to be better golfers. And I think in fishing, there's a lot more education during the live process, during the learning process. So that was a very educational show for me, and I know I'm going to look at fishing dams and concrete structures with current a lot differently going forward. All right, tomorrow, a guy who does know how to sit out on a ledge and catch them better than a lot of other people is Brandon Lester. Now, it's shocking to me. He's got his first wins this year. First win earlier this year in Florida in the Bassmaster Open. First Elite Series win. But the guy's fished I think 35, 40 opens, and he averages a top 10 in half of them. Do the percentage, folks. That's 200 guys in the opens, and he's averaging a top 10 in them. So I want to get his thoughts on that. I want to get his thoughts on how he beat everybody on Pickwick. And then Wednesday, and then day 4 with Uncle Frank is actually a recorded show. Frank's off taking care of some business, but it's a really cool show on Thursday because Frank's cameraman, who films all of his stuff on LureNet, is on the show for that. So we got some really good stories from Frank. So really good feedback today. I want to give a shout out to Ryan Salzman once again. Also, if you're interested in a locker room session, you can get on BassZone.com. Click on that. And new apparel coming. We're going to do some old school throwback BassZone.com apparel. The yellow Z with a little bit of the new school BTL on the side. Something that hasn't been available for 10 years. And we're just going to do a single drop once they get their website up and going. So that's it. BTL on a Monday. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. Thanks for listening.